Hi, I'm Mark Stone, and it is day 78 of Trump 100. It's late afternoon on Sunday here in Washington, D.C., the end of a weekend where I guess world leaders and the populations they represent have been taking stock of the global economic shock unleashed last week by Trump and his tariffs. It's been a weekend of peaceful protests in cities across America.
Stand tall in every state. Stand tall in truth. Stand tall.
They were a focus here in DC with tens of thousands gathering at the Washington Monument protesting against President Trump and his agenda. The banners reflected a wide range of issues that people are concerned about. Everything from NATO and Ukraine to schools and libraries, courts and the Constitution, abortion and the economy. So much. More on what's coming up this week at the end. But first, as always, our Monday episode is a chance to reflect and project with people who have a unique perspective. Today, I'm joined by Sir Nigel Sheinwald. He's the former British ambassador to the United States during another pivotal and tricky period of our recent history. The perfect person to talk to in these topsy-turvy times. Sir Nigel, welcome to Trump 100. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm in Washington, in our bureau. Washington, somewhere you know very well. You were here for quite some time. You've also been Britain's representative to the European Union. You were Tony Blair's foreign policy advisor. You've been a diplomat in Japan, Moscow. And as I say, you were here in Washington between, I think it was October 2007 to January 2012.
That's
when
right.
You when you arrived in Washington, George Bush was president. When you left, it was Obama.
Absolutely. And I'd served in Washington in the 80s, in the Thatcher Reagan period, and had seen the relationship at that period as well. Obviously, a different style of UK-US relationship, but nevertheless one which was particularly close and intense at times.
Yeah. So let's kick off, Nigel, with your reflections on these past 78 days of Trump 2.0.
It is a turning point, and it is a major change for America and a major change for the world. I think I found it useful to try and distinguish between the things we were expecting and the things which have come as a genuine surprise over the past 78 days. We were expecting this to be a much better prepared presidency, and it is. We were expecting them to hit the ground running, and they certainly have at an exhausting pace for everyone else and for governments around the world. But all that said, and for all the expectation, I think there are a few things which are really surprising. I mean, the first is this in the geopolitical world is the McKinley doctrine, is the doctrine of smash and grab, of territorial acquisition, of spheres of influence, indeed. We always used to worry about this in relation to Russia or China. But of course, America has always had its sphere of influence without thinking that it had a right to annex territories in its immediate area. I'm talking now about all the talk about Canada, which seems still improbable, Greenland, Panama. These are things, frankly, I certainly hadn't expected, although they've been mentioned occasionally before. They've become much bigger things. I don't think we'd expected something like the spectacle in the Oval Office of seeing a beleaguered partner of the United States, the president of Ukraine, attacked and humiliated in the way that he was. My third point is simply the venom which has gone into the attack on Europe, and the fact that a Rubicon really has been crossed. So I think that's a change which is very damaging for international relations, because it sort of opens the floodgates to dangerous and intrusive behavior, which can affect our own democracies and our own standing.
And that has added, I guess, to the strain on the so-called special relationship. I want to talk about that. I mean, does the special relationship transcend the day-to-day challenges, or are we at risk of deep damage, do you think?
Well, I think it's very difficult for the UK-US relationship, and I always try to avoid myself using the term because it carries so much baggage and it becomes such a lightning rod in itself. I do think that the UK-US relationship has a remarkable depth and breadth to it. But of course, it comes under great pressure. And I think it's going to be very difficult to sustain the sort of relationship that we've had if that bedrock of values and basically shared behavior on the part of democratic politicians is taken away. What is going on in America, the divided state of America, the extremes that we're seeing, and the takeover of this particular version of populism does make it very, very difficult to land our relationship in the way that we did.
And on the specifics of tariffs, let's talk about Starmer's strategy, because he's gone
Yep.
softly, softly, no retaliation for the tariffs, although they say, the government says they'll keep all options open, but they do not want to retaliate. So starkly different from Canada's approach, from the EU's approach. Is this the right strategy?
Well, I think we're in a different position from the others. I mean, Canada, is facing a sort of existential challenge. It's not just on trade; it's a challenge to its existence. How serious that is, how whether that really is carried through, is another matter. And I think for the European Union, their trade imbalance with the United States is the big factor, and one of the reasons why there's so much venom behind the way that Trump and his administration talk about the European Union. I think our trade position as a single country now out of the European Union is fundamentally different. I think it's right that we should say we're going to think about retaliation. We might indeed have said that a little bit earlier on. I think it's always wrong to sort of take that off the table or sound as if you don't mean it, because in the world of trade policy and trade negotiators, this is a tough world where you've got to brandish those weapons and seem as though you're prepared to use them. I don't think it's fundamentally wrong. I think it's a question of whether in the weeks ahead, and I would expect this. I think the tempo and the tone need to be notched up somewhat. But I think that the government, our prime minister, have alighted on this way of dealing with Trump for now.
I'd love to talk about Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, doing your job now. A politician in the role of a diplomat, always risky. I guess you know him very well from your Blair days, do you?
I do. I mean, I first met him, in the early days of the Labour government, in '97. So I've known him. I've known him since then.
How's he doing?
The less risky thing, undoubtedly, would have been to have left our previous ambassador, Karen Pierce, extremely well respected in Washington, very well connected with the Trump people, to have left her there, for a year or something like that, and to see how it went.
Would that have been a better idea, do you think?
I don't know, and I don't not necessarily. And I, come back to what I think their reasoning in it is, and it goes back to what I was saying before. I think that they're right to think, and goodness knows the last 78 days show it, that they're dealing with something different with Trump's second term. They realize the nature of the challenge to us bilaterally, to the alliance, to the world system, sort of as we've known it. So I think they felt that they had to make a special effort and decision themselves. It's the first political appointment to Washington for 50 years or thereabouts. But of course, it's a greater risk after that long gap, because Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, now is a bit of a lightning rod. He has a much higher public profile than normal, professional British diplomats.
He does in the UK, of course, but I've been struck at the number of Americans who have said to me over the past couple of months, "Who's Peter Mandelson? Tell us about him. What's this Lord of Darkness stuff?" So in America, he's not particularly well known, but of course extremely well known in the UK and in Brussels.
Yes, and I don't think, and that side of it is important to a British ambassador, whether you're a politician or not. How the government and you personally are portrayed in the UK, European, international media is relevant to your job. But I think the obvious advantages, particularly in the area we were just talking about, is that if you want someone with a cool head and a lot of expertise and experience in the area of trade policy and international trade negotiations and politics,
He's
there's
your
no
man.
one there's no one to approach to approach Peter Mandelson.
Well, let's talk briefly, but you bring up the role of the British ambassador, running the UK's largest embassy, the custodian of the special relationship, and of course, living in that wonderful Lutchins mansion at 3100 Massachusetts Avenue. It's a big, big job, isn't it?
It's a large embassy. It's got every bit of government in it.
What was your most intense moment as ambassador? Take us back.
I think the most intense experience was probably the weekend of Obama's inauguration. So January 2009. My job on arriving in Washington, had been to understand the campaign, the 2008 campaign, which is a very open campaign when it started, um, and to get to know the campaign advisors and the candidates themselves.
Just to say, I can't remember who it was, but someone said the job of the British ambassador is to get up the backside of the American president and stay there. So did you achieve that?
I don't know, but you have to start that on the campaign trail. In my case, anyway. I mean, that's the norm. Peter Mandelson didn't get there till after the inauguration, but so the inauguration weekend, very exciting. If you go back to that period, a period very different from the more menacing rhetoric of a Trump presidency, that dystopia that he likes to conjure up at every moment. This was a moment of genuine hope
Yeah.
in American politics and international politics. And it was professionally a very demanding weekend because we were holding things at the embassy and trying to get to know to all the incoming people, dealing with a delegation out from the UK, but also trying to size up at the moment. This very new president came into office with a relatively shallow back record of policy making. What an Obama presidency was going to be like at a time when the international economy was in free fall as a result of the financial crisis of 2007, 2008.
You were here for the crash. You were here for the Great Recession. I mean, that must have been an intense time as well. I mean, the catalyst for that and the market troubles we're seeing now, very, very different. But how would you compare that moment with the moment we're in now?
Well, very different. I mean, to state the obvious, I mean the tariff crisis and the economic crisis which we're in today are man-made. They arise from the choices made by President Trump and his team, and history will show whether those were wise or misguided. And most economists and most others think that the economic rationale for this is highly suspect. So we'll see. The financial crisis of 2007-8 was fundamentally different. I mean, few people, some did, but few people saw it coming. The American stock market took about a 50% hit as a result of the crisis in 2007, 2008. So that's a huge loss. And let's hope it doesn't end up anything like as serious as that. I mean, the UK's role, one of its roles in during the financial crisis, with Gordon Brown by that stage as our prime minister, was to try to get some sort of really deep and tangible international cooperation to bring it to bear on this series of financial crises which were unfolding around the world. I was interested, that our prime minister is spending the weekend talking to opposite numbers about the reactions to what Trump has said. I don't know whether that amounts to coordination, but it's the first step, gaining information, exchanging information, and so on. I think the Canadians have been quite explicit about coordinating their position with the European Union. But the big hole in the middle of this is the United States. I mean, in the former financial crisis, the task for Gordon Brown was to get the US behind a major international effort. Here, it's the United States which is seen by the international community as having caused this crisis with an excessive and an extreme set of moves.
It's been said to me by foreign diplomats here that one of the things they've really struggled with is that it's all very well to have discussions with the people around Trump and in the context of trade. I've heard this a number of times, that they have these conversations with people in Trump's inner orbit, people who are dealing with the trade policy. And the negotiations are kind of speculative because they just don't, even the people close to Trump don't actually know where he's going to land on whatever issue it is. And so it's kind of speculative negotiation. It doesn't get anywhere until you actually put the issue in front of Trump's nose. And it's hard to do.
It's hard to do, and you do wonder how much, whether that is a serious way of operating over a 4-year presidency with a lot of technical issues,
Yeah.
arising. I'm not denigrating Trump, but I think any president, would find it difficult to be personally okaying every single jot of policy. You've got to find a way in your system of delegating and getting your lead negotiators out there.
Yeah.
For
And
me,
you,
one of the problems with either the Ukraine negotiation or these negotiations, which are going on now, is the opacity of the process and who actually are we negotiating with?
yes, diplomacy with the Donald, delicate to say the least. So, Nigel, thanks so much for talking to us. A pleasure to have you on Trump 100.
Thanks very much, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Now, British diplomats, it has emerged. We're in West Palm Beach, Florida this weekend. I expect they weren't the only ones there as governments try to engage with Trump and his aides in and around Mar-a-Lago, all of them trying to get those tariffs lowered or eliminated. And I wonder whether Trump's kindness, in inverted commas, to Britain will actually only make it a little bit harder for the UK to negotiate down from that 10%. We will see. I expect a Trump-Starmer phone call sometime very soon. And on that, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu is in DC in the coming hours, the first world leader to make his second trip to see the American president. And it won't just be Gaza that they are discussing. Netanyahu is going to be trying face to face to negotiate a better deal on tariffs for Israel because, yes, Israel tried to avoid them altogether by preemptively lifting all its tariffs on American goods, but Trump still hit them with a 17% tariff. So Netanyahu's success here in Washington will be instructive for other countries globally. Anyway, that is it for day 78 of Trump 100. If you have any questions for me and the team, you know the email address, trump100@sky.uk. Thanks for joining us. Join us again tomorrow for day 79. Bye-bye.